Where is Ice Dancer?
Welcome back to HIVEMIND Unlimited.
So Apple Music has released a list of the top 100 albums of all time, and it's caused quite a stir online.
Yeah, you could say that again.
I won't. Let's be honest, though. The reason that people are talking about this is because it looks awesome.
Yeah, I mean, to graphic design freaks like you, I'm sure you're getting off on it.
The release cycle, revealing a batch of albums each day. They even did golden clues for the top 10 albums. They looked like Monopoly pieces.
Yeah.
All I will say is the graphic design carried this. That's why it was a conversation online, so props to the graphic designer.
Love you, graphic Apple man, person, lady. I don't know.
It looks good. Let's go through it. 100, Body Talk by Robin.
Yes.
99, Hotel California by Eagles. Astroworld by Travis Scott lands here at 98.
Happy it's on there.
Rage Against the Machine self-titled at 97.
Awesome.
Pure Heroin by Lorde at 96. Confessions by Usher at 95.
God.
Needed that one.
Needed it to be higher.
Untrue by Burial at 94.
Shout out Burial.
I love this inclusion. I was surprised to see it there, and I'm happy it's here.
Me too.
93, A Seat at the Table, Solange. Flower Boy by Tyler, the Creator lands at 92.
Big T.
Listen Without Prejudice, Volume 1 by George Michael.
My dad is very happy to see that there.
Back in Black, AC/DC at 90. Don't care. The Fame Monster Deluxe Edition by Lady Gaga at 89.
I'll say it. Don't care.
Yeah, it's a great album, a great pop album, but I will say it's very weird that deluxe editions show up on this so much. Like, we'll get to a few later, but like, deluxe edition?
Needed those extra ones.
I guess. 88, we got I Put a Spell on You by Nina Simone. 87, Massive Attack, Blue Lines.
Wow.
Great album. Mary J. Blige's My Life at 86.
Yeah.
My life's just fine, just fine. Shout out to Tony. He's back there. He loves that song.
He is literally dancing.
The music video is fantastic. Golden Hour by Casey Musgraves at 85.
That was an inconvenient time to yawn.
You're not bored by that choice?
I was. It wasn't even a real yawn. Shout out Doggy Style at 84, though.
Then we got Horses by Patti Smith at 83.
Great record.
We got Get Rich or Die Trying by 50 Cent at 82.
Just want to point out the sandwiching there. Patti Smith in between 50 Cent and Snoop Dogg.
Yeah. After the Gold Rush by Neil Young at 81. I would have picked Harvest, but that's cool.
Yeah.
Marshall Mathers LP by Eminem at 80. Norman effing Rockwell by Lana Del Rey at 79. Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, Elton John, 78. Like a Prayer by Madonna at 77. Un Verano Sin Ti by Bad Bunny at 76.
Really their only inclusion of like world music here, which I just think to have this as the banner for that is kind of interesting.
I mean, it came out last year.
Yeah, I know. And there's really no other world music on this, and this is the one you went with. It feels, I'll get into that later, but interesting choice.
Super Duper Fly by Missy Elliott at 75. The Downward Spiral by 9 Inch Nails at 74.
Freaks.
Aja by Steely Dan at 73. SOS by SZA at 72. Right above Steely Dan. Trans Europe Express by Kraftwerk at 71.
Banger.
NWA's Straight Outta Compton at 70. Metallica Master of Puppets at 69. 69, God. Is This It by The Strokes at 68. Dummy by Portishead at 67. The Queen Is Dead by The Smiths. Ooh. 3 Feet High and Rising by De La Soul. Baduism, Erykah Badu. Are You Experienced? The Jimi Hendrix Experience. All Eyes on Me, Tupac. Love Deluxe by Sade at 61.
Should have been Diamond Life, but keep it moving.
The Velvet Underground and Nico by The Velvet Underground and Nico at 60. AM by the Arctic Monkeys at 59, right above that Velvet Underground album. That is such a classic. You got to throw this in. I will say really quick, this is a random tangent, but I watched a video on TikTok the other day of a guitar player who was playing a Red Hot Chili Peppers song. And he was talking about, he was like, people think this is hard to play, and it's not. It's the whatever, that one. Then he plays the riff from Do I Want to Know by Arctic Monkeys from this album. And he talks about how people think it's easy to play, and it is easy to play, but then he sings with it. Mm-hmm. And he's like, this is like 200% of my brain power to try to sing the way that Alex Turner sings on this song with that riff. He's like, how did he come up with singing like this over that riff?
Right.
And I've never thought about it that way, and it did like hurt my brain how he wrote the cadence that he sings over that. And I do love that song, and I think this album's really good. It's definitely way too high on this list, though.
I would agree.
What's the Story? Morning Glory by Oasis.
Lovely.
Voodoo by D'Angelo.
Feels low.
Yeah. Disintegration by The Cure. Yes. Anti by Rihanna above Disintegration by The Cure is crazy. I like this album.
It's fine.
I like that Ohio is on the cover of it for some reason, but that's a little wild to me.
2 above Voodoo, too.
Yeah, wow, yeah.
Everybody in the office at Apple said,
Listen to Voodoo and Anti back to back. I dare you.
yeah.
A Love Supreme by John Coltrane.
One of the only 2 true jazz albums to show up, and I will get into that later as well. I feel like jazz was a little underappreciated here.
Exile on Main Street by the Rolling Stones. Appetite for Destruction by Guns N' Roses.
Okay.
Feels high. Sign of the Times by Prince, yes.
Yes.
Hounds of Love by Kate Bush. Incredible album. The Joshua Tree by U2.
Whatever, Bono.
It's a good album. Probably their best.
Yeah, of course.
I'm just glad they didn't put that one that they put on everybody's phones on here.
Well, they learned their lesson, I think.
I wouldn't have been shocked if that was in the top 10. I'm not going to lie. Paul's Boutique by Beastie Boys. Take Care by Drake shows up here at 47. Now, I think Nothing Was the Same should be above Take Care.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of rap albums that should be above Take Care that are below it. Like the Marshall Mathers LP, like the Missy Elliott album.
Doggy Style.
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of albums here that should have been above Take Care. I don't even think it's top 3 Drake.
Hey, I disagree with a lot of what's going on here.
Exodus by Bob Marley and the Wailers. Homogenic. Bjork. This Bjork album. Yep. Intervisions by Stevie Wonder.
Yes!
Remain in Light by Talking Heads. Control by Janet Jackson.
Woohoo!
Aquemini by Outkast.
Okay.
I Never Loved a Man the Way I Love You. Aretha Franklin.
Thank you, Aretha.
Thank you, Aretha. R.I.P. Shout out Detroit. Motown. Illmatic by Nas. Now, this should be a top 10 album.
Yeah.
Like, there are rap albums above this.
No business being above them, really.
There's a few rap albums I would maybe put above this album. None of them are the ones that show up from here on out.
Yeah.
Tapestry by Carole King.
I will say it's better than Illmatic. Tapestry by Carole King's better than Illmatic. I'll die on that hill.
All right.
Fuck me.
Enter the Wu-Tang, 36 Chambers.
Awesome. One of the first albums that got me into rap.
Beyonce, self-titled. Great album. London Calling by The Clash.
Slay Queen. Oh, I meant to say that for the one before. Sorry.
That's all right. It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back by Public Enemy. Kid A by Radiohead.
Talk your shit, kid.
I got a lot to say. But I'll get to it later. This isn't the only Radiohead album that's going to show up. Ready to Die by the Notorious B.I.G. Jagged Little Pill, Alanis Morissette, which is a breakup album about Uncle Joey from Full House. Cut it out. When We All Fall Asleep, Where Do We Go by Billie Eilish. I have more to say about this inclusion later. The Low End Theory by Tribe Called Quest.
Great album.
This is an album that debatably is better than Illmatic, but it still is a little crazy to me that it's above it, you know?
Yeah.
Dark Side of the Moon, Pink Floyd.
Good.
Whatever. Led Zeppelin 2. Yeah, that's probably their best. That's a good choice. My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy by Kanye West shows up at 26. I think if this happened 3 years ago, 5 years ago, this album's in the top 10. I think it's just honestly how he's viewed nowadays is they don't want to put it much higher. And I think there should be 3 Kanye albums on this list.
Probably.
And this is the only one that shows up, and it's at 26.
Yeah.
Kinda Blue, Miles Davis.
There's your second jazz record.
The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars.
Not my favorite Bowie, but fine.
It's kind of the consensus best Bowie, but I would put a couple albums over it. I even put, these days, I put Black Star over it.
Yeah.
I mean, that is like,
it's
a haunting album. Discovery by Daft Punk.
Yes.
I was happy to see this show up here. I was nervous that if we were not going to get a Daft Punk album. Born to Run, Bruce Springsteen.
Would have put Nebraska.
Would have put Nebraska.
Hey, don't be an asshole, buddy.
What do you mean?
Don't be a dick.
4th of July in a pickup truck.
Quit being an asshole, dude.
I'm not being an asshole.
You're acting like a dick.
I like the guy.
Okay.
I'm 76 and I play for 4 hours.
My best friend is Barack Obama.
I started a podcast with Obama. Your mom thinks I'm still hot.
All right, that's enough.
All right, I'm sorry. Revolver by the Beatles.
Your favorite.
My favorite Beatles album, but it's not the last one we're going to see.
Damn right.
Pet Sounds by the Beach Boys.
Who cares? They love Charlie Manson.
Dr. Dre's The Chronic.
Good.
Yeah, that's another one you can debate if it's better than Illmatic.
Yeah, I like The Chronic 2001 better personally, but that's just my era.
All right, 1989, Taylor's Version by Taylor Swift. I have more to say about this later. This is also the Taylor's Version Deluxe. Just want to point that out. It's not 1989, and it's not 1989 Taylor's Version. It's 1989 Taylor's Version Deluxe Edition.
Thank you for that.
What's Going On by Marvin Gaye.
Merrily squeaks out Taylor Swift. Thank you.
Blue by Joni Mitchell.
I love it. It gives me goosebumps.
21 by Adele. It's above Blue by Joni Mitchell and What's Going On by Marvin Gaye.
Wrong. I'll say it.
Highway 61 Revisited by Bob Dylan, and you have the floor.
I mean, it's the only Dylan album they include. It's not the one I would have picked, and I feel like any other Bob Dylan album's better than every other album on this list. But I'm biased, so
Right.
you know. And I feel like it is kind of weird though. Like when we get to these big critic lists, he usually is like overloved. And you know, this is a fine pick. It's good. You know, it really surmises that time of him turning to rock. So
What album would you have put?
Freewheelin' probably. I probably just would have went with the OG as like if I'm only gonna choose one to put in the 100, I probably would have put that or Blonde on Blonde.
13, The Blueprint. Now, this is, it makes sense, but like Reasonable Doubt is Jay-Z's best album to me.
Mm-hmm.
And also, The Blueprint's just not better than like all of these rap albums that we just heard. Like Illmatic?
Yeah.
The Blueprint over Illmatic? I rarely hear that take.
Yeah, I've never heard it. This is my first time hearing that take.
Yeah, or Enter the Wu-Tang?
Yeah, no, come on.
Even The Chronic?
Yeah,
like,
come on.
this is a crazy inclusion.
Great album, but
Yeah, like where it is on the list though, I don't get.
I think they're trying to like make up for Tidal or something. I don't know.
They're like, come on, Jay-Z.
We love you over here.
Come on over. OK Computer by Radiohead. So here's my take here. This album, I get, you know, a lot of people say it's the best Radiohead album. I think if you're going to include two, I'm fine if you just put In Rainbows right here. I think Kid A is their best album. That's my favorite album of theirs. But In Rainbows is like neck and neck with it. Yeah. I think OK Computer is like their fourth or fifth best album. And it just is wild to me that it is included and In Rainbows is not. And Kid A is like 30 spots lower.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
It's fine.
I'm really sorry.
Rumors, Fleetwood Mac.
Fun album.
Lemonade by Beyonce.
Not as fun, but good.
It's a good album. Top 10 of all time.
Give me a fucking break.
I'll get into my pop take later. Nevermind by Nirvana, which we will have to censor. Back to Black by Amy Winehouse.
I thought this was already on here. The AC/DC album.
Oh, yeah. I see.
Yeah.
Good Kid, Mad City Deluxe version by Kendrick Lamar.
Coming in at 7.
Yeah, Good Kid, Mad City over To Pimp a Butterfly. And also Astro World over To Pimp a Butterfly. By this logic, I understand there are mostly artists with one album on this list, but for the artists that do have two, you got Beyonce, you got Radiohead, Prince, you have the Beatles.
Stevie Wonder
as well, yes. I'm like, what are we doing here? This list is effectively saying that Astro World is a better album than To Pimp a Butterfly.
Yeah.
That's an insane take.
Yeah, it's also saying 1989 and 21 by Adele are too. So it's like, come on, guys, what are we doing?
Yeah. All right. Songs in the Key of Life, Stevie Wonder.
Yes!
Blonde by Frank Ocean.
Yes.
Now, I will remind you, in a video that we did of our subscribers' favorite albums, you did say that Blonde was better than Songs in the Key of Life.
All right, good. I thought you were pulling bad receipts on me. Yeah, I agree, I guess then.
It's very funny that these are 5 and 6, and you did that exact thing.
I would say, yeah, that's right where they fall.
In the best albums of all time?
These consecutively might be the two they got the most right.
Okay.
In my mind. This is like the part of the list where I'm like, hey, I would have done the same.
I think that they're both a little high. It's weird because Songs in the Key of Life, I'm not saying that album, that album should be in the top 10, but it's a little weird that Blonde is in the top 10. Like if I was making my top 10 albums of all time, I don't think Blonde would crack the top 10.
Yeah, and when I'm looking at it like a list I would have to live with for the rest of my life, I wouldn't include it either.
Right. Then we got Purple Rain by Prince and the Revolution.
The movie version. Interesting.
Abbey Road by the Beatles falls at 3.
My favorite. Thank you.
Thriller by Michael Jackson at 2. And number 1, The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill.
A lot of people would say, wow.
They'd say, wow?
Wow, I didn't see that one coming.
Wow?
Wow.
Wow?
Wow, I didn't see that one coming.
Before we get into our overall thoughts on the list, what are your snubs? What do you think should have been here?
I compiled a little list here. I think some are like universal snubs, and then obviously I just had to shout out some of my favorite albums of all time that I would have like absolutely been juiced to see on the list. So it's a mixed bag of that. First one that really stuck out, I think country's a little underrepresented here. Redheaded Stranger by Willie Nelson would have been my pick. I think it's just like the quintessential cowboy solo, beautiful old Western writing. It's perfect. I think that should definitely be included over you pick any of these albums, probably.
Real quick, was Johnny Cash not on this list at all?
No. There's like no country at all.
Yeah, well, Casey Musgrave's Golden Hour, which is a great album.
Awesome album.
It's not really a country. It's like a indie pop country sort of thing.
And if I was making this list, if we were a giant corporation, I would say we need these like pillars for these genres so that everybody can kind of have the conversation about it. And it feels like some pockets of music fandom are completely like just not included.
Like emo.
And that brings me to my next one, Awakening by Hiroshi Sato. That's a selfish pick there. So is the next one, Crying, Laughing, Loving Line by Lobby Seferi. I think it would have been cool to see a little kind of like a deeper cut album in here.
I thought Lobby Seferi would be on here because it just feels like culturally right now. He's had that thing of critical acclaim where I feel like they would have been cool to put him in there.
Yeah, and it's also, this is a great moment to give someone some of the credit they never got in their time. And so that would have been a great one. I mentioned the lack of jazz representation. It's kind of coupled with my opinion that world music isn't really represented here that well either, only really with Bad Bunny, which is fine, but I think if we're going to just lean into Western, specifically American music, jazz plays such a critical role in that it probably should have had a couple more albums on here. I think one that missed it big time is Chet Baker Sings, because Love Supreme and Kind of Blue are on there, but those are lacking a lot of vocals, and you have a great horn player and a great saxophone player. It's awesome, but I think the best vocal jazz album of all time is that Chet Baker album. There's a Riot Going On or Fresh by Sly Stone. I think funk is, you have some Prince here, and Stevie gets a little funky, but I think you're missing kind of that edgier part of that era. For world music, I would have included the Charlie Garcia album, Clicks Modernos, just a perfect record in my opinion. It would have been cool to give South America or literally anywhere else in the world a little notoriety, because they do make music everywhere else in the world. I know that
I learned that recently.
I remember telling you that, yeah. I think one we can agree on and one a lot of people would agree on with me is Graceland being excluded.
Speaking of world music.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, even just throwing Graceland in there would have been like, all right, at least we're acknowledging that it happens elsewhere.
Yeah. That album is a huge snub. I can't believe it's not here.
And it's such like an old head universal opinion.
And also, I mean, like if you just threw in Simon and Garfunkel.
Sure.
Like a Simon and Garfunkel album, there's just none of that.
Yeah.
It's weird.
And that's kind of why I said I would have chose the Freewheelin' by Bob, because I think that early 60s era kind of gets stepped over here in place for fuckers like Taylor Swift and shit. You know what I mean?
Right.
Dirty fuckers.
Oh, yeah.
All right, that's going to get me in trouble. Let's keep it pushing. As far as another jazz album I think that could have gone in here is The Night Train by Oscar Peterson. You could have picked any of his albums. That just happens to be my personal favorite. Again, for edgier, kind of smoother funk, We Go a Long Way Back by Bloodstone. Would have been killer to see in there. I think a lot of people would have really gotten hyped over that. Headhunters by Herbie Hancock. Again, kind of on the jazz tip, but more adventurous and like pioneers in the genre. This is a 4-track album, but it's 45 minutes long. The synthesizer, OG, God. Like, you have Kraftwerk in there and you have some of that early dance electronic stuff, but I think Herbie solves the jazz problem a little bit and some of that early dance synth work stuff. Whatever, wasn't included. No Herbie here. Fine. And the last one I think you might agree with too is Something Anything by Todd Rundgren. Again, like that 60s singer-songwriter era that is kind of misrepresented here, or underrepresented rather. That album is just perfect top to bottom.
And yeah, I mean, even if it was included, it wouldn't really make any difference.
Do you really love me?
You just did not love me.
Oh God, I got chills.
I got goose pimples as well.
You have a beautiful voice.
Thanks, man.
Sober King, Todd Rundgren. Also, Patti Smith is here, and Patti Smith would have never made music without Todd Rundgren. You'd think someone would have read that somewhere. Sorry.
All right, my snubs. Number 1, the Carter 3. There's no Lil Wayne. 0 Lil Wayne albums on this list. 0. Number 2, no Elliott Smith albums. You're telling me XO doesn't make this list? You're telling me Figure 8 doesn't make this list? Come on. Continuum, John Mayer.
Oh, nice poll. I didn't even think about it.
If you're going to put D'Angelo here, got to put Continuum by John Mayer significantly lower on the list.
Good point, man.
Higher, whatever it is.
Whatever.
I mean, if you put the Continuum at 90 and D'Angelo at 20,
yeah,
and then you're like, you're good.
Then you work from there.
Yeah. Now, my selfish ones, Bright Eyes. There's no Bright Eyes thing here. I'm Wide Awake, It's Morning. It's considered a classic. I feel like it would have made sense on this list. Then Modest Mouse, Lonesome Crowded West, or Moon in Antarctica. I think they both would have made sense here. But even if you go just more critical consensus above that in that genre, In the Aeroplane Over the Sea by Neutral Milk Hotel not being on here was surprising.
Yeah.
It just deserves a spot. It's such a great album. It's such a cool story. It's like lightning in a bottle. They really just made, that's their second album, but they never made anything else.
Right.
And it just has so much cultural significance. Then also The Glow Part 2. You've got no Phil Elverum, no microphones. You've got no Mount Erie. It's a little strange for that not to be here in some way, just for how critically acclaimed it is.
Yeah.
And Nick Drake.
Come on.
Like, put Pink Moon on here. That's not even my favorite Nick Drake, but it would be the one that would show up here. And like, I just don't understand how that's not here. And it just goes to kind of what you were saying, that 60s underrepresented 60s singer-songwriter, beginning of folk, all that stuff.
I think it's because we hate the boomers so much. We're taking it out on their music taste. It's not their fault that some of the best music was made then.
Some other kind of selfish ones, but also critically acclaimed. Like, there's no Sigur Rós album here. I feel like Agetis Berger, however you say that one.
Well done.
The one with the baby, the one with the fetus on it, the blue one. You've seen it. It's Icelandic. I don't speak Icelandic. I'm sorry. I also think Heaven or Las Vegas, Cocteau Twins.
Absolutely.
I mean, come on.
I mean, we got Kate Bush on here. It feels like it fits right in there.
And then no Aphex Twin.
What the?
Just, I mean, like you said, like you got the Kraftwerk and you got Daft Punk, but you just don't have like, that's a pioneer. Like, if you got Burial there too,
right?
Like, I know that's not the same thing, but I'm just saying, like, you don't have any of that without Aphex Twin. Also, Donuts by Jay Dilla.
Totally agree. Should have been on my list as well.
What the heck? Like,
what the heck, man?
I've never seen a top 100 albums list without talking about that album.
Yeah.
Also, Shoegaze. No Shoegaze here, which I kind of expected, but Souvlaki by Slowdive or MBV, like, you gotta have an album there.
Loveless usually pops up on these lists.
And I thought that it was going to, and I thought it was going to be in that top 40 range, and it would kind of been like a conversation, but didn't show up here. Also, Mad Villainy.
Yeah.
Not even for me. Like, I know that how great that album is. It's not one I return to as much as maybe other people do, but just doesn't even make sense that it's not here.
I feel like it's always in the same conversation with Illmatic.
That's weird. And last one I had was just, I saw it all over the internet, although I don't love this album the same way other people do. Grace by Jeff Buckley feels like it would be a shoe-in.
It would have pissed some people off, no matter where it fell. So maybe they stayed away from it. You know, that's one, it's either is too high or too low, wherever you put it.
Now, the first big controversy that I want to talk about is the inclusion of modern pop on this list. The modern pop releases are a tough pill to swallow, but I don't think we have the context that we need, which is time.
Yeah.
So to me, like the Billie Eilish album, that didn't bother me as much because I do think that album is so flawlessly produced and executed. And as a debut album, I think it deserves its flowers. Taylor Swift being at 18, that one, it just feels very off to me. And I understood what they were trying to do. You have to celebrate new releases as much as you celebrate old releases. That's my favorite album by her, regular 1989 version. And I know that they're obviously going to celebrate Taylor's version above that because it's almost like a political message. If you're supporting the original 1989 based on what Taylor Swift had to do to own her masters again, all that stuff, you're gonna do Taylor's version, and that's fine. But showing up at 18, surrounded by the albums that it's surrounded by, feels like something that would only happen in the pressure cooker that we're in, where you have to celebrate Taylor Swift that way.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel genuine as a take.
It does not.
And I just think if you're gonna go with some modern pop albums, like Paying by Caroline Polachek is a more interesting choice, and I think a better album than any modern pop album that shows up on here. Maybe aside from, you know, the Solange album or Beyonce's Lemonade, like there are albums that I think are more culturally important and I understand why they're here, but the placements were very strange. To have What's Going On show up just above 1989, you're gonna have weird juxtapositions if you're gonna include all these different genres, but that's crazy to me. What's Going On is such an important album.
Yeah, I feel like Taylor's got her gun to everyone's head.
Yeah.
That's like the vibe I get every time I see 1989 pop up in a high-ranking album list or something. It's like, she's not going to kill your family, dog.
And also, I don't even think it's Taylor Swift having the gun.
Right.
To me, it's the Swifties.
Yeah, it's the fans.
I'll say it. I mean, like, I like a lot of Taylor Swift's music. I've said that. And, like, I think some of it's great. I think some of it's a little overrated. Whatever. Everybody's got their opinions on Taylor Swift. But the fandom, I get it. That's, like, your favorite artist or whatever. But they're the reason that everybody has to do this.
Yes.
You know? We don't have to pretend like Taylor Swift's album deserves a spot next to What's Going On and above The Chronic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
We don't.
We don't have to do that.
No.
Like, it's okay to put it somewhere in the 50s and let it sit there.
Or not at all. It's okay.
It's fine.
It's fine. Now tapping into the conspiracy I have about this whole list and its timing of its release and most importantly what came at number 1. I love The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill as much as the next person. I think it is a flawless album. I think it's very perfect. I think there's a lot of perfect albums on here though. It's on the run up to her new album release. So the convenience there is a little too big for me to totally totally ignore because as perfect as it is, putting it at number 1 is a conversation.
Totally.
Especially if you're releasing this as an authority. This is Apple's 100 greatest of all time. They probably won't do it again. This is the list that's going to live forever. This is going to sit at number 1. This conversation is forced on us now, and in a couple months, we get a new Lauryn Hill. So it's just really fresh in everyone's mind. I'm not saying that's like a bad thing. I'm not saying this whole thing's like corrupt and part of the album release, but it's just a little funny, don't you think?
Because see, I just saw it as a bit of a political thing. I believe that the miseducation of Lauryn Hill deserves a spot in the top 10, no matter how you slice it. But putting it at number 1 felt to me like, okay, they're not going to get a lot of hate for this because it's hard to hate on.
Yeah.
If you put Abbey Road at number 1, people are gonna hate. They're gonna say like, why is this better than this, whatever. It feels like the right one to put there. I think you could have put Thriller there, but there's gonna be a conversation there as well. But what you pointed out to me about that being a lead up to her album, I was like, it's for sure gonna be an Apple Music exclusive.
Exactly.
Like, it just is.
Yep.
And if it's not, then, you know, I'm wrong. That's fine. But to me, it does feel like there's something there.
Yeah.
That being said, this leads perfectly into what I think is the silver lining of this.
Okay.
I did see the rage bait tweets that were like, who's this nobody at number 1?
Sure.
And of course, those people they're being facetious there. They're trying to be, it's rage bait. That's what it is. But I did genuinely see a lot of people posting that they were listening to this album for the first time. And I think that's such a good thing. This being number 1 does that. Thriller, everybody's heard it.
Right.
Abbey Road, almost everybody's heard it. Purple Rain, most people have heard it. Nevermind by Nirvana, I think would have been a fine choice, but everybody's heard it.
Yeah.
This is an album that, yes, most people have heard it, but there are a lot of modern rap fans, modern pop fans, modern soul fans who have never heard this album or never given it really the time of day in a rotation. And I think what it does is make people go back to this album and decide for themselves if it deserves this spot. And it's hard to listen to this album and find a flaw in it.
For sure.
The funniest thing about it, though, all of those screenshots of people doing that I saw were Spotify. And I think that is so funny that Apple Music's number 1 album of all time inspired all these people to be like, about to hit play, never heard this album, Spotify.
Yeah.
So Apple Music, by doing this, is running up Lauryn Hill's Spotify numbers. And I truly believe that this will be on the Billboard 200 for the coming 6 months. I think this album will re-enter. This will be a resurgence of this album in conversation. And I think that's ultimately a good thing. And so despite all my gripes and all my snubs, it's a list of 100 albums a streaming service came out with. And ultimately, there's a lot of great albums on this list. There's a lot of albums I agree with being in the top 100. And I think they did what they could. There's always going to be controversy. There's going to be conversation. There's going to be people being like, what about this album? There's going to be moments like Take Care at 47 and Taylor Swift at 18. But if it did one good thing, it made people recognize or rediscover the genius of Lauryn Hill's album, The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill.
Stream her new album on Apple Music in 2 months.
That's our take on the top 100 albums of all time according to Apple Music. Let us know what you think got snubbed down below, or your biggest problems with the list, or what you like about the list.
And if you hated it, blame Pharrell and Charlie XCX. They had a big part in it.
Really?
Yep.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And none of their albums show up.
Yeah.
They didn't have that much of a big...
Pharrell's like, and at this one, I was thinking, they're like, shut up! Throw Taylor in there!
How about Despicable Me 2 soundtrack?
Shut up!
Charlie's like, come on, we can't even get like a Sophie album? Let us know what you think down in the comments. We're HIVEMIND Unlimited, and we will see you in the next one.
Bye!
If you write the same shit as me, I swear to God, I'm going to pop off.
Oh, you haven't popped off in a while.
I'm going to throw you in a vat of lava. I have one in my backyard.
Well, that is awesome, honestly. Above ground or in ground?
Above ground. We can't afford the in ground. It's
Yeah,
like
it's kind of tacky, though.
Honestly, don't tell anyone,
Yeah.
but the HOA in my neighborhood says you can't have above ground lava pits. And so I'm kind of getting away. I'm pulling a fast one on them. So don't tell anybody, but I have erected a very tall fence in my backyard.
Correct.
Yeah. I'm going to throw you in that vat of lava. The above ground one later.